afternoon, whenever you're listening to this. Welcome to the internet's most sophisticated wrestling podcast, discussing the weekly aspects of it all, right here on
The Bald Monkeys Wrestling Podcast.
The break is over. The break is over. Happy 2020, everybody. Welcome to the Bald Monkeys Wrestling Podcast. And oh, do we have a group of people here to talk some wrestling? We got a full house up in here. I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. I am Big Baby Jimmy. I'll introduce each person and let them talk for a second. We got Mr. Captain Chuckles here.
Hello all. I have missed our WWE and AEW fans, and welcome to this joyous new year.
The joyous new year. We have Christopher.
You're such an idiot. Happy New Year, everybody. It's been a while. I've been doing a lot of Twitter talk, so thanks everybody who's been listening and talking to me on Twitter. And it's good to be back with all you idiots and talking some wrestling.
We have Steven the Boss Hill.
Good morning, everybody. Happy New Year.
He's just a bundle of enthusiasm. That's what we bring him here for.
You're damn right.
And echoing. And then we have a very special guest who's only been on one other time, but he wanted to come on and start the new year out right. Mr. Creamy Kramer.
Good morning, my fellow baldies. Happy 2020.
L to the yeah. Full house, baby. It's very exciting. And I'll tell you something. Chris had mentioned he'd been active on Twitter. I have been active not at all. I have enjoyed the last bit of the year not really watching wrestling. I did not watch a bit of wrestling until the extravaganza, and we're going to jump right into it, people, that we're going to call the wedding of the decade.
Oh, jeez. Why do we got to start 2020 with this nonsense?
Because in my humble opinion, this wedding, which totally went off the rails, was actually pretty good.
Was it ever really on the rails?
Maybe it never really was. It was on the rails when they first started talking, but it went off the rails immediately. I don't know what you guys actually think, but for a storyline that has hit all of the wrong notes so often throughout the whole thing. I mean, it's just been a bad storyline. And, you know, I've defended it so many times when I shouldn't have, because they really should have killed it a long time ago. But let me tell you, for a dead horse that just keeps getting beat, this was like the one shining moment for that dead horse. Like, it was absolute insanity, and it 100% reminded me of the Attitude Era, like in every single way.
But don't you feel like it was like botch filled? Like you end up with Lashley's makeup on Lana's face. You end up with
Best part.
It was so bad, so bad. There's like a huge mark on her face, and everyone just ignored it. Like, just no, there's nothing there.
I think I looked away for a second, and I was like, "What the hell happened to her face?"
It was
So that was like the beginning of the botch, and then like you end up with the ex-husband and ex-wife come out. Those were actually pretty decent, like the extras doing that, or the extra wrestlers or local wrestlers doing that. But then bringing out Liv made zero sense, and I almost felt like her promo was just really like she was kind of skipping around. She couldn't really get a full sentence out. It didn't feel strong at all. And then you have Rusev, who couldn't get out of the dang cake. So like the whole thing was just botch the whole way through. So that's why I couldn't get into it.
It was entertaining as hell to me. I thought it was great.
Dude, Rusev's face. I don't know if you guys saw it, but when he popped the top of the kickoff, he just glanced at the main camera like, yeah. And I just could not stop laughing.
I did like his tie. I was glad he was wearing a tie. Or
He
bow
also
tie.
had a new shirt, Chris, for you.
Yeah, a new Rusev Day shirt, which it was kind of similar to the new Orange Cassidy shirt, which is interesting. I got, two of my favorite wrestlers are wearing a similar shirt now.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, believe me, the Twitterverse was on fire after this happened, and it started to spark like real debates about real issues. And yeah, I'm the person over here in the corner saying, keep all that crap out of wrestling. It's wrestling. Was it entertaining or was it not entertaining? And for me personally, it was entertaining. It made me laugh, and I thought that, although I feel like I'm kind of with the masses in one aspect, and it's that it hurt my heart a little bit when I saw Liv Morgan come out. I was like, no. I'm like, why are you becoming part of this?
Yeah, I feel like they wasted her. The whole build, the mystery around her, they just shit on.
I mean, they did such a good job with like the social media like her little social media campaign for this character change. I mean, it really got everybody jazzed up to see her. And then, I'm kind of torn. Of course I'm happy to have her back. And even compared to her last character, I don't dislike this new character at all. I mean, I think it could be, a very good character. But that being said, I guess I was hoping for something a little darker, although I feel like I had maybe made up my mind that I didn't want to see her be aligned with the Fiend at all, which is one of the things we had kind of talked about. I think everybody thought that was going to be the case. I think that maybe was the wrong direction after a certain point. But I don't know.
Didn't it just feel like it was just kind of thrown together? Like the fact that she was even in this storyline almost seemed like it was a last minute decision. Like it didn't even take the same direction of the promos she's been giving. It just seems like it was a completely different angle that she's included in this storyline.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a Vince move, right? Like, oh no, we're gonna throw her into this last minute to make it work. And the moment, I mean, and really, it's all about the payoff, right? It's all about that payoff of when Lashley's like, "Listen, I've never even seen her before," and she's like, "I'm not talking about you." And then that payoff of like that moment. And the face that Lana's making. And I actually thought the payoff was there, and I thought it was a very entertaining moment, but am I 100% happy with the direction that they've pushed Liv into? They didn't let her live up to her potential, because her coming back shouldn't have had anything to do with Lana, and it should have had everything to do with Charlotte Flair. Like that was supposed to be the main thing. But they are banking on the fact that it's wrestling, and you can because it's been long enough, you can be like, well, maybe people don't remember why she's gone. They don't remember that she lost kind of badly to Charlotte Flair and then made this big deal about like, well, I'm going to leave and I'm going to come back and I'm going to be better than before.
But isn't this just leading us to Lana versus Liv, which makes me kind of vomit in my mouth a little bit, or like some kind of mixed tag match with Rusev and Liv versus Lana and Lashley? Like that to me isn't interesting. That's not the angle that it needs to go.
Yeah, I could definitely see this turning into a mixed tag team.
Yeah, it definitely has a mixed tag team feel, I think. And the question then becomes, is that a Royal Rumble mixed tag team, or do they push that out to WrestleMania and try to make it like a big thing there?
I sure as shit hope it's not at Royal Rumble because I don't want a match that we're gonna see being wasted on this stupid ass storyline.
You know what? I could go on a 60-minute rant about how I already know the Men's Royal Rumble is going to be a shit match because of all these different storylines that they're pushing. At the end of the day, the person that it feels like is being set up to win the Men's Royal Rumble is too, like, I'm not pointing like it's this person or this person, but it's pushing to be too cliche of a winner. So,
Well, they could surprise. And let's go back to the Royal Rumble we went to, and then I kind of bring this up. Roman Reigns is always going to be there at the end because Roman Reigns is either the winner or the person that gets the crowd behind the other guy. Because we went to the Rumble and Nakamura won the Rumble, and the only reason the whole crowd was behind him was because the other guy in the ring was Roman Reigns. And they got everyone behind Nakamura. So it's like Roman Reigns is going to be pushing the storyline to be one of the last guys in the ring, either to win or to put the other guy over.
I don't think that's necessary, though, because there's multiple people that can do that.
Not the way Roman Reigns can do it.
Roman Reigns can't do it. Roman Reigns can't do it the way that he used to, though, because the way he was hated. He was hated back then when we saw him. And if you're actually going to pick the person who's most like Roman Reigns right now, it would be Seth Rollins. So Seth Rollins is the person who can get, I think, the most support behind somebody that he's in the ring with.
I actually disagree. I actually think it's King Corbin.
Get out of here with that King Corbin.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
I think King Corbin. Yes, thank you. He needs to be the one. I think he needs to be the one that potentially wins the Royal Rumble, wins the whole dang thing. And you could probably pull a storyline out of that if you end up letting the belt get dropped by one of the other guys at Rumble. But that being said, yeah, Corbin is the one that's, I think, could get the other guy over more than anybody else. He's the face maker, man.
No, I agree. I think that you're dead on with Corbin. I just don't. I don't want them to have that mindset with Roman Reigns right now because I just don't think Roman Reigns is there. He's not to say he's not entertaining, not to say he's not a good wrestler, but he's just not at that level. So he's not polarizing enough as he used to be. So. And then my other issue with the Rumble, and then, again, this is a bigger issue because we're going, is that the Women's Royal Rumble equally seems like, well, isn't Shayna Baszler just going to win, and that's going to be it?
Could you see a situation where Sonya Deville wins and finally gets the push she deserves?
But where am I getting even a hint of that from?
You don't need it. They've been doing
True.
this lately where they go last minute storyline. I mean, could you see a situation where Charlotte Flair wins and goes up against Bayley? Could you see a situation where Sasha Banks wins? And then it's the question of, is she going to go up against Becky Lynch or is she going to go up against Bayley, or are they going to turn them on each other? Those are three storylines that could happen that they could put together pretty quickly.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't think.
Same.
I mean, with Shayna, the thing is I think that's the right story. So that one bugs me less, right? Whereas with the men's, God, who knows what's going on. And this past episode of SmackDown was crazy town with people returning, and some the right way and some the wrong way. Like, what the hell, WWE? You got John Morrison in your pocket to be a big flippin' pop, and you bring him out for a nothing segment where he comes out of the Miz's room. Like, that's such a waste.
And it's not. Well, he's already been introduced, 2 times? Because he was on. They announced it on Twitter. He showed up on The Bump, which I still think they've stole our idea of a show. And then they, bring him out to just open up the door for Mrs. Locker. So they've already introduced him 3 times.
Well, but think of it this way, right? It's kind of like that kayfabe thing where it's like, as long as I don't see him on the show, I am willing to suspend my disbelief of him being back until he shows up. And now, because you put him on the show in a nothing segment, you've ruined my suspension of disbelief.
There's no more disbelief. He's there.
He's there.
He has shown up. And it seems like he's destined to team up with The Miz at the Royal Rumble to take on the New Day. Seems like the direction they're going.
Well, if that's the case, then Christ almighty, they better win that match.
Well,
if John Morrison's coming back, they need to win that match.
I think that it would be. I think it would be very competitive. And I think it's one of those, if they let Kofi and him do the things they're able to do, there could be a lot of spots and crazy moments in that match. Just like in the Rumble, if they let him be in the Rumble and Kofi in the Rumble. Kofi always does those crazy things. And, Morrison's capable of doing that with his parkour history. Let him have some fun.
That's a good spot for the Rumble. That like, without having to force a match into the Royal Rumble, a tag team match, having the New Day in the ring together, having the Miz by himself, up against the 2 New Day, and the time ticks down, and then it's Morrison who comes out, and then it's 2-on-2, and then they can, like you said, they can do some stuff with Kofi and Morrison and going forward, and then they can build a storyline out of the Rumble going through into WrestleMania, which then maybe you put the tag team match on WrestleMania, and maybe that's where they take the titles from the New Day. That's a decent one if you want to build the storyline in a different direction.
I agree with that, and it gives them time to move a little bit and let him get familiar in the ring with the 2 of them again and working with the Miz again. I think that's a good thought out direction.
It's tricky, man. Like, there's a lot. I agree. Like, the returns were kind of weird. I had to watch SmackDown because the stupid networks are having something about money, so I can't watch Fox right now. But like, I was watching some of the returns, and I thought the Sheamus one was pretty good, a pretty good swerve. And man, did he kick freaking Shorty Gable in the face. And I think he's dead. Like, I legitimately think he might be dead. And I think that was a better put together return than the Morrison showing up out of the door. The one that I actually don't like the most is the Usos coming out and saving Roman Reigns.
I felt like that was bound to happen at some point, though, exactly the way that they did it.
But I felt like it was unnecessary. Like, I felt like we already have enough heat on Corbin and Ziggler. We already have that, Reigns is really being beat the crap out of by these guys. Do we really need the Usos to push this storyline any further? I mean, I feel like the Usos were better off in any other tag team storyline you could find right now.
I mean, I think they can still pivot them over to that, right? I mean, them interfering doesn't mean that has to mean anything other than, hey, they might be involved in some spot in the Rumble, and that's your way of saying, well, that means none of them are going to win the Rumble. That means Roman Reigns isn't going to win the Rumble. The Usos aren't going to win the Rumble. It's just they're there for the spots that they're going to have internally with their other Raw people. And then it's really comes down to, like always, a handful of people that actually have the potential to win the Rumble. Like they could have both Buddy Murphy and Aleister Black in the Rumble just to have a moment where they're in the ring together. Because, hey, that series, by the way, has been great. That match that they had on Raw was great.
Those guys have found gold, and they've been doing it on the house shows too. I've been seeing some social media pictures and stuff where there's quote unquote teeth laying in the ring because they're kicking the crap out of each other so bad. It's been pretty stellar, and I think it's a matchup we knew was going to be really good, and I'm glad they're going to let it go for a long time.
Yeah, I saw them. I went to the house show up in Hershey, PA, the Sunday before New Year's, and man, they put on one hell of a match. And like, I know we've said this before, but for anybody listening, if you haven't gone to a regular old run of the mill house show, you have to, because the guys and the girls, they interact with the crowd so much more. It is so hilarious to see these guys kind of act in persona but out of persona at the same time.
How about the amazing thing that you saw at that house show is the Randy Orton angle. You saw the whole thing like come to fruition there at that house show.
I did. I mean, there it was, and I said this on Twitter. I don't know if I responded to somebody, but I said Randy Orton needs to get the Oscar for best performance, because dude, when he was in the ring and he tried to pull off the RKO, I mean, it definitely looked like he landed wrong, because the whole arena was like like, what just happened? And I mean, he like immediately was like, I went into the corner, I can't do it, like down on the ground. The ref puts up the done sign. They have guys come out, and for a second I was like, no, there's no way. I'm like, if his knee is this bad, they need to have a stretcher or something come out, because he can't walk on it. And then like he tried to walk on it, and then they had like more refs come out and like more security guys come out, and he's limping up the entrance ramp thing, holding on to the barricade. Like, I mean, I was like, wow, he really did hurt himself. And I think I even texted you guys, or I texted Chris, and I think Chris said it's got to be a work. I was like, no, man, I don't think so. And then you were like, nope, all the reports are saying he really did get hurt, man. And then on Monday, I was like, damn, that was good.
He had me, man. I bought into that so bad. Like, he starts to, and I'm like, oh my god,
he started to cry almost.
Yeah, I was like, is he getting ready to retire? Like, what the hell is happening? And then AJ Styles came out, and I was like, nope, it's a work. The second AJ Styles came out and started talking shit, I was like, it's a work. All right, never mind.
I like that Orton had mentioned the one person he respected was Edge. So hopefully we'll see Edge come back.
I know he's cleared.
Do we know he's cleared? Like, that's the tricky part. Like, it's come out that Edge has somehow figured out how to get cleared, but he is vehemently, like, on social media, been like, no, still not happening. And he's been very short and to the point with it, and just ignored all this conversation out there. But the podcast is gone, right? The Edge and Christian podcast is gone. Christian is doing backstage. Edge has kind of been quiet, and no one knows what's going on. Is it just for him to show up at the Rumble? Are they doing it like go away and come back? Or is it just us overthinking it, like, oh, CM Punk's coming back? I mean, we've been talking about CM Punk coming back for how long has he been gone? That many years.
Yeah.
So is it the same situation with Edge? Are we just assuming that this is going to happen when it's not? You know, they talk about Paige coming back, and she can't. You know, Daniel Bryan has blurred the lines of what can and can't happen, because he was able to figure out a way to get cleared again. And there's other guys that have these neck injuries that physically cannot get cleared. And that's my assumption with Edge. I just don't think I don't think you could ever get cleared from that injury. I don't think they can, unless there's a different level of cleared that they put out there. Like, well, you can do this thing, these different bumps in the ring, but you can't do everything. Like, if they limit the wrestlers in the ring and say you can be cleared at 90% or at 80%, I don't know if it's really going to happen or not. I mean, I'm going to pop like crazy if his music hits in Houston, but I don't know, man. Like, it seems like another one that maybe we're just overthinking it, and maybe he's just not clear.
Well, you know, we're fans. We're supposed to overthink it. That's the fun part.
Yeah, we're fans.
You either
but
get
we're also podcasters, so we do both angles of it, right?
I try to be critical, but then I get down on myself a little bit for being too critical sometimes. Like at the end of the day, I feel like the way that I always wanted to do this podcast was to talk about, is it entertaining or is it not entertaining? How can it be entertaining versus, critical breakdowns of anything. I'm never going to get paid millions of dollars to like have these really good, accurate, critiques of matches, that are like 5-star matches and stuff like that. That's not.
I'm looking for like maybe like tens of thousands of dollars. Like I don't need millions.
Oh, okay.
Tens of thousands would be fine. I'm good.
So, did you guys see the tweeting between Joey Janela and Penelope Ford?
That was great.
I am going to read all of these tweets. I'm going to read it.
Can we even talk about this in the podcast?
Yes.
It gets pretty good.
Yeah.
It gets so good. I'm going to read everyone.
Before we hit this, I want to just hit one thing on the Edge angle. I could see him coming out at Rumble, but in a very specific way where the guys in the ring are guys that like he would know and trust to do anything with, and it would probably be he's in, he might get one or two people out and then he's out real quick if he does come at Rumble.
Yeah,
protect him. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, he gets thrown out by a Strowman, which will just be the most annoying thing ever.
Strowman's breaking a record this year. He's gonna throw out like 20 people.
Can we just not have him? I would feel so much better if he just wasn't in the Royal Rumble.
You got to have a storyline for him, which they don't right now. So.
Okay, so switch gears. AEW. Here's Joey Janela backstage. He's getting ready to cut a promo, and then all of a sudden his face inverts. And the camera pans down, and Penelope Ford has just given him a nut shot. And then Kip Sabian comes out, and they kind of look down at him, and then they walk over him, and they walk away. So, obviously building up a storyline for AEW. Well, not to be outdone by the segment that they were in, Joey Janela and Penelope Ford decide that they're going to tweet back and forth, and they make this storyline so much better with their Twitter banter. So,
absolute gold.
So, bad boy Joey Janela tweets to Penelope Ford, "Hey, Penelope Ford, if you wanted to touch my penis again, all you had to do was ask." To which she writes, "I'm surprised I could even find it." Now, Kip Sabian is so much easier to place. He then writes, "Hey, calm down, Tammy. This penis got you a contract." To which, where I think that's then Penelope Ford tweeting, but it's supposed to be Kip tweeting, said, "Hey, champ, Kip here. Sorry, but Penelope can't make it to the phone right now. Her hands are full. Parentheses, so is her mouth, if we're being honest. Hope your mom's making you something nice for dinner. Remember to eat your vegetables." And then Joey Janela finishes it with, "Too much information, Kippero. You must be pretty bored because you and I know she isn't very good at that. Maybe you don't know because you've only had sex with 2 girls in your entire life." Holy moly! I
think there's another tweet after that where Kip talks about that.
He deflects. Yeah,
dinner.
He deflects it. Yes. Yeah. He deflects it. He sends a tweet out that's something like, "Man, I've never seen so many people on Twitter compare dinner to some perverted tweet," or something like that. Like tries to totally deflate the whole thing.
I think we got a new idea for a podcast where Jimmy just sits here and reads tweets off. It'd be a terrible podcast, but it'd be just fun to listen to Jimmy just read off tweets for like 2 hours.
I mean, I was reading that. I mean, that is some of these wrestlers. They just have this down to a science, like using Twitter and just making. I mean, that's why we said we were disappointed in the Liv angle, because it was the lack of what she was saying, like, and everything seemed so precise so often that it really was pushing towards a really interesting character, and then the payoff of that wasn't good. Well, this is a little bit cheaper in its in the way that they do it, but it's effective.
Yeah, I think that's Becky Lynch, a person who on this podcast we've obviously had different sides of being behind her, being over it. She actually found it, I think, a while ago, and was able to use that to propel herself into the spotlight, because she's done an amazing job on social media, becoming the man. And then your point, Liv, was being kind of cryptic and stuff, and it was interesting. Obviously, Bray Wyatt, the master of cryptic tweets, which he somehow figured out a way to go back years and say, "Go look at my old promos and put it together, and it's a poem." He was amazing at that. He's been amazing at that. The guys that really know how to do it are able to build character off of television, and we've talked about this. I think that's important in wrestling right now, is you don't necessarily get TV time, so you have to figure out another way to build your character. There's house shows where you can build a following and work on your character, but social media is a huge tool right now. And if you use it right, I mean, we're going to see probably a decent Joey Janela, uh, feud here. And Penelope and him figured out a way to make us interested in it. And we're talking about it right now. MJF's another one too. MJF's pretty good on Twitter, just basically bashing people. He's kind of the Ciampa of AEW, but he tweets more than Ciampa ever did, because Ciampa basically just ignored people.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a lot more fun with the interaction. I mean, MJF, I mean, he goes all in on people, and it was it was interesting watching him when he came out. So like, he came out, and then right before they went to a commercial break, he was interacting with the fans, like he was stalling for time, basically waiting for TV to come back. And it was interesting him walking by the fans and interacting with each of them, and interacting with them in very different ways. I think he like gave a woman a kiss and then he like
Took the popcorn.
yeah, he was doing all types of stuff, man. It was
That one kid in the corner, he put up his ring and the kid kissed the ring. That was hilarious.
yeah.
All right. So here, this brings up the obvious controversial conversation with our AEW. And Jimmy and I have talked about this a little bit. I've tweeted a little bit about it. I've text messaged a little bit about it. I have a huge issue with the production, the commercials. What AEW has been doing is taking away from the product, and the commercials specifically are driving me nuts. Because there's moments when they do picture in picture, which is interesting, like Guevara out there with the cue cards. That's funny. It's a good way to take the picture in picture and make it interesting. But using the picture in picture to continue showing wrestling, and that wrestling is like something I really want to watch, and then it goes completely to the commercial, and then I come back and I have to get back into the match. That has been driving me crazy. And specifically, the last Dynamite, which was an amazing show, a well put together show as far as matches go, a great crowd, but it was the production where they had to go to commercial all the time, and when the mics weren't working, when you have a Luchasaurus conversation in the back or interview in the back and he gets cut completely. Guys, you got to do better. It's been 6 months or so now. They got to do better, because they have a better product than what they're showing on TV. And I had a conversation with a few people on Twitter, and someone actually said on Twitter that they didn't understand my gripe because I complained about the production and the commercials, and they said they're both good. I'm like, no. I'm like, you cannot say that this production has been done well. Taz is even saying it, A+ production crew. Guys, come on, let's be honest. They can do better. And that's my gripe. It's not I'm not bashing AEW for being bad. I'm saying you guys can do better. You guys are doing a great job in the ring, your storytelling, but it's getting taken away from, because seeing a good match is important, being fluid, having rhythm to it. And when you take that rhythm away by going to commercial or not being able to have the mic set up right and we hear the mat smashing every 2 seconds, it takes away from it. and it's important that the crowd and the people at home all have the same experience.
Well, yeah, but effectively, if they cut to commercial and they do picture within picture, then you're not losing the flow of the match, versus if they just went to commercial, then you immediately would lose flow of the match.
But again, the idea that we're all sitting there watching the tiny screen and watching a match on the tiny screen is silly, because you can't see the dang match, and at some point it's going to go to a full commercial. There was a point where Dustin Rhodes was fighting Guevara, and there's a chair, and he goes to hit Guevara with the chair, and it goes straight to the full commercial, and we never find out what happened. Literally, I still don't know what happened, because they never came back and explained it or showed that clip in a replay. They have to pick which spot they're going to show. So just don't. This is why the headlock was invented, so that you could have this moment in a match where you go to commercial, but it's still storytelling for the crowd that's there live. I just think it could be done better.
I 110% agree with you, Christopher. I said it from the first couple of weeks that they were on TV, that it reminded me of the old like WWC production in terms of like camera angles and like how they shot things. And then it just like over time it was like, oh well, like the mic's not working here or this and that. But now like you had two segments in the back, or two segments on this past week's Dynamite, that the mics were just absolute crap. I was like, what? Huh? What did he just say? And then like, yeah, I get your whole thing with the little, the commercials in the picture, picture in picture kind of thing. You should not have good spots going on while you're in that part of your production for the show. It should not happen. Like, that's exactly what you said. That's what the headlock was for. That's what the get thrown out of the ring, after you just got destroyed is for. That's, the timeout and you're running around the ring, John at the crowd. That's what that's for. That's what the commercials are for. Not for something big to happen and you're trying to, if you don't have an 80-inch TV, you're looking at it on a little thing that's like a foot by, 8 inches. You can't see anything. I completely agree. I saw your back and forth with the dude on Twitter about that, and I'm like, this guy just is not getting it at all. So I'm with you. I have not enjoyed the production of AEW probably at least a third of their shows that have been on TV.
I don't know if it's a full production thing, because when they first started, I was one of the ones who was taking some shots at their production. They've gotten better. The whole mic issue, I can't defend on that. But the other issue, that's a little bit of timing with the production and the wrestlers in the ring. They keep a pace. They're supposed to stay on pace. They should know when it comes to the point where they have their scheduled commercial breaks, to where you have that recovery time, you have the headlock moments, you have the shit talking the crowd. Like, they're supposed to stay on a pace. That's that professionalism that is wrestling that you see in WWE, and AEW is getting better at it. Like I said, they still have a lot of younger people, and it's just another step they have to do. It's just a timing thing. I don't think the whole commercial breaks is a production. I hate the little commercial breaks. I hate the little windows. I get doing it for advertising purposes, but the big issue is just the timing from the production team and the wrestlers to know when it's going to happen.
Man, even the handoffs. Like, think about JR doing the handoffs to commercial where he keeps going, "We'll be right back. We're not going anywhere." And then he does the picture. It's so awkward every time he throws to commercial.
Yeah, well, JR and the King have lost their ability to really carry a show a long time ago, and they're just being used for their name value at this point.
You know who hasn't? Taz. Taz was great. Taz was really good this week on Dynamite, and I hope they can kind of sign him up for long term.
I don't know. Kind of torn. This is an interesting topic, because the problem is that when I'm on the show side of it, when I'm literally at the show, I detest headlock segments and segments that just slow down the action when they're unneeded. It's like, my view of it is, if something crazy happens and the fans at home don't see it and they don't decide to recap it, then screw the fans at home. Who cares? I'm paying money to sit here and watch this show in an arena, and I deserve a good show. So if you can do a full match without headlocks and like the slowdown for television's sake, but still make it entertaining for the people watching on television, and more importantly, the people in the crowd, then do it.
Yeah, but when you're at the show, you're one of maybe 10 to 20,000, as compared to, depending on what show you're watching, anywhere from 750,000 to 2 or 3 million watching at home.
And did those people pay money to sit in a seat in the arena with me on that night?
No, but I would believe that the promotions are making more money off of the TV side of things at that point than the money that you pay for the seat.
All I'm saying is you can have your cake and eat it too in this system.
No.
All you have to do is you just, like, if something crazy happened when you were on commercial, you don't have to recap it. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, but so I'm in the middle of agreeing with you, Jimmy, but it's a situation where, take away the headlock. I don't disagree. The headlock's annoying. I joke that use the headlock during these commercials, but couldn't you use some of the house show antics that these guys are doing, to Chuck's point, where he's at a house show and they're interacting? That's the moment when they go to commercial that you get what you paid for as a person in the crowd at the show. You get that interaction because it's a commercial, and now you can interact with the wrestler because they can do something that the people at home don't see, and it doesn't matter as much that we don't see it at home. But if it's a big spot and we don't see and don't understand it at home, we lose that piece of the story. We lose that page to the book. If they just interact with the crowd and do something different with the crowd during that commercial, we don't lose anything at home, and the crowd actually gains something by getting an interaction that the people at home don't get. So that's the way to make it work still, without losing the people at home. And it doesn't have to be win-lose. It could be win-win.
The problem with the standard commercial break. So let's complain about the real problem, which is that commercial breaks sometimes are way too long. And I speak on that from the...
I think it's often. I don't even think it's long. I think it's often.
Yeah, but in the house show side of it, right? You're talking about the house show antics, and a match that we saw that in for sure was Drew McIntyre versus, who was he facing on that one, Raw? He was facing somebody, and he came out there, and it was clear that there was a commercial break because he gets on the mic and he starts insulting South Carolina, right?
Right.
The problem was
he was facing Matt Hardy.
Matt Hardy. Yeah. The problem, though, and I don't know if you guys felt this too, was that commercial break went on for way too long, because it kind of was starting to work, and then all of a sudden they lost it. Like, it just felt like, at least for me, it was like, God, just fight already. Just fight already. Why haven't you guys started fighting yet? And I know the answer to that is because they're not back from commercial yet. They'll start fighting when they're back from commercial, but it was like a long commercial break.
See, I disagree, because I like that. I liked him with his antics. Think about him going back up. He was going up the stairs, pretending to get in the ring, and then he would turn around and just walk around the ring. He did that 3 or 4 times. He was talking about how, he was better looking than anybody there. I think it built the character. It built the heat that he needed. And I wasn't like rushing him to get into the ring to wrestle Matt Hardy, because ultimately you knew what was going to happen. He was going to beat Matt Hardy. So rushing the inevitable wasn't important to me at that time. It was fine that they were building a character and building heat for him, so that the crowd was really into it when you came back from commercial. So the people at home really felt a live crowd being into it. AEW has that. Their live crowds are really into it and they're great. But it's just, I feel like the people at home aren't getting that same flow and feeling that the live crowds are getting.
Well, then they don't get that even with that match, because if they don't see the off-camera antics that Drew McIntyre's doing, then they don't necessarily do a good job of building that character against Matt Hardy either.
They don't get that portion of it, but they feel like if you hear the crowd booing really hard or cheering really loud, what do you say when you're sitting at home? Man, the crowd's really, this guy's really over, or the crowd's really, against this guy. You notice that when you're watching at home. That's how that gets translated to the viewers at home.
Why hasn't that saved the Lana segment then?
Because it's not working. I tell her all the time on Twitter, every time she makes a comment, still not working. It's just not. Whatever character she's trying to build, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't work. These other guys, it works because it makes sense and they're good on the mic.
I think at this point, they're all just trying to build Rusev up for another Rusev Day.
Yeah, it just
you should more direct those tweets, Chris, to Vince McMahon himself, since he loves this storyline so much.
I don't know, man. I agree that it's like Baron Corbin is a great example of, man, Chuck hates Baron Corbin, and that's a character working because his job is to get everybody to hate him. MJF, people dislike MJF because his character, he's able to put that character over. I don't think people hate Lana because, man, she's doing a really good job. Like a Vicky Guerrero, when she would yell, "Excuse me," that was annoying and it was getting over because it was annoying. Lana is people are just like, man, it's awkward. You can't follow it. She can't get the words out of her mouth right. That's not working. That's not getting good heat because she's a good heel. That's just, man, this is awkward TV. The whole wedding itself reminded me of the Bailey "This Is Your Life" segment that was like historically one of the worst segments ever.
Ever.
Like, that's what it felt like. It's this awkward, like, man, I know what I'm supposed to feel, but I feel awkward. I don't feel heat or hate. I feel just awkwardness.
You know what I feel? I feel bad for Rusev in a way that he's in this situation. And as much as I dislike Bobby Lashley, I feel bad for Bobby Lashley too, that he's been sucked into this bullcrap of a storyline.
We should feel bad for Lana too. Really, you should feel bad for all of them for having to keep the storyline going.
I don't feel bad for Lana.
So wait a second. That better be kayfabe hate though, because she doesn't have a choice. At the end of the day, the storylines are already written, so it's just like you should feel bad for the wrestlers. But you know what? To their credit, they're trying to make it work. They're at least trying. I don't know. Cody and Darby Allin had a hell of a match this week.
Great.
Did you expect anything other than that, though? I mean, looking at both of their works so far in AEW, did you expect anything?
You know what's interesting about AEW, and I'm pivoting for a second, is that you guys are very critical about production. My thing that I always get critical about is logic and storylines and stuff like that. And they did something this week that drove me up a wall, and that here's Cody and Darby Allin, and they're getting ready to have a match, and they are emphasizing, well, it's a new year, so the records have reset. It's like, okay, I'm following you, AEW. It's a new year, the records have reset. And they're just emphasizing that big time. So then we get to the women's match, and it's like, well, that's the number 1 ranked woman in AEW, and that's the number 2 ranked woman in AEW, and the number 3 and the number 4. I'm like, well, wait a second. The record's reset. So isn't everybody number 1 or nobody's anything? It's like, how can you say this person's 1, 2, 3, and 4 when you just said literally that all of the records have reset? And then we pivot to another men's match and they do the same thing. Well, remember, the records have reset. It's like, wait a second. You can't say You're doing one thing and then do another thing and then go back to doing the other. It's like logic, baby.
Well, you can if it's the women's division because nobody cares about the women's division.
No.
I care.
It's just like when you talk about college football or college basketball, and like, you know, they're the preseason ranked number 1 or this and that. They can still talk about it. I mean, it is like, well, yeah, everything is reset. So really no one is. So think of it as like they're the preseason 2020, you know, number 1 ranked wrestler. You got to look at it that way.
Well, you need to say that. You need to explain that, or else it doesn't make any sense, and I'm going to be critical of you. And I'm not critical of AEW a ton. I give them lots of passes. I don't have issues with their production really that bad, other than when it's audio. You know, I mean, sometimes the announcers drive me up a wall, but other than that, I like watching AEW. I don't mind the picture-in-picture. None of that stuff really bothers me.
Yeah, mark your calendar. It's
Whoa.
January 1st, 2020, where Jimmy announced that he does give AEW passes on production stuff. And overall, in general, he gives them passes.
I give WWE passes on production stuff. It happens. Who cares? I don't care. It doesn't take me out of it most of the time. The only thing that takes me out of wrestling angles is when they're not good. You know, when they're doing a very poor job of, you know, putting said angles over.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. And I think that's part of what with AEW keeping the traction that it has and with the numbers still being relatively good for them, I think it's helping force WWE to get rid of some of those crappy angles and crappy storylines, and it's making them have to rethink things. I'm not saying it's going to be great because, I mean, even in the Attitude Era, there was some shitty stuff going around. But I think it's going to help the product as a whole, no matter what brand people are on, what company people work for. I think it's going to help it all as long as they can stay competitive. And it's the little things they got to keep good at. I know they're trying to make money anywhere they can. That's the whole commercial issue with the picture-in-picture. They want to keep the match going for timing purposes, but they want to keep that money coming in. Whenever they get their feet on the ground fully and start running, it's not even been a year they've been on TV. Give them a year or two, and I think the production value is going to be through the roof, and you'll have very competitive shows every night of the week for everybody.
Yeah. Sad to say that Tanahashi, by the way, did not beat Chris Jericho.
Yeah, I kind of expected Tanahashi to win. Yeah, I won't.
It would have been a lot more fun had that been the case, but sadly, an AEW New Japan partnership is going to have to maybe stall out for the time being. I think me and Chris had talked about this earlier in the week, how good of a move that would be for AEW. The amount of extra fans that it would bring in and such, so. But I guess it will have to wait. Creamy, you there?
Yes, sir.
Talk to me about something, man. How much wrestling did you watch this week?
I watched Raw and SmackDown yesterday. Did not watch any of AEW.
And between Raw and SmackDown, what did you think was the most compelling stuff that they did?
Let's see. I think I'm in agreement with everybody here about the whole Lana Rusev thing. I think that was terrible.
Except for me. I didn't say it was terrible.
You don't count. Remember that. You don't count. Well, you know, last time I wasn't able to get too many words in because of you, so now I got to make up for it.
That's everybody on this podcast.
That is true. While before Amy had to leave, she was listening, and she was just like shaking her head. She's like, "Man, that guy talks a lot."
Accurate statement.
Oh gosh. All right, keep going.
Let's see, what else did I find compelling? Otis. I love that man. He's like me. He's short, he's round, and he's just damn good looking.
Whoa. Hold on. Let's talk. When we talk about production, we talk about production. When are we ever going to see one of Drew Gulak's full PowerPoint presentations? That's what I want to know. WWE.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine if you went to a house show and Drew Gulak
Play
came
the whole
out
thing.
and he did it for like an hour, like 2 hours, just straight, just
I would
nothing
love
but
it.
a PowerPoint?
They should just release it on social, like release the PowerPoint on social media. Release a file that you can download. I want to go through the PowerPoint and just see it. I want to know who's drawing the pictures for him. Like that's like in the storyline, who's gonna be? Is Gulak also an artist? Is he the one drawing these pictures of the cartoon characters of Otis? It's amazing.
What I would like to see is let's get an old school Matt Stryker with him being the teacher and Drew Gulak, and let's see who can have a better presentation.
Good little Matty K action. It's interesting where Gulak is right now because he's obviously enhancement talent at the moment, where he's putting guys over after he had a great run in 205 Live as one of the better champions they've had in a while. And how they transitioned him to the main roster now, and he's just basically putting guys like what Braun Strowman and Otis now over. It's something we've kind of talked about. Like, don't use local talent as much. Use the guys that you have sometimes to put other men over, and women, put other women over too.
Yeah.
It's working for me. All right, pivot backwards.
Backwards
pivots. We're gonna rewind for a second. I need to understand, when in the history of wrestling did the Canadian Destroyer become the super kick? Because holy crap, everyone's doing it. Like it's every 3 seconds in a match now. I'm seeing Canadian Destroyer. It seriously has turned into the super kick. Like, everyone's doing it for a big spot. You almost legitimately killed Guevara when Rhodes gave him that one on the apron. Like, it looked like he was dead.
That was pretty sweet, though.
Oh, it looked great. It looked absolutely great. But you're going to do it to the point where the super kick at this point isn't as powerful as it used to be, right? You have to do something different with the super kick, like make Ricochet do a flip off the ropes and Adam Cole kicks him in the face upside down for the super kick to have that much impact. Like, the Usos did a double super kick when they came out this week, and it was like, okay, yeah, double super kick, I get it. But like, the Canadian Destroyer is starting to get to that point where it's like, man, we're seeing it all the time now. And guys are obviously kicking out of it. So it's losing its impact. The super kick used to be the finishing move for Shawn Michaels. So one super kick, you're done. The match is over. And now it's like it's done all the time and nobody gets pinned by it. So what are you're gonna do the same thing to the Canadian Destroyer. You're gonna use it too much and it's gonna lose its impact. So it's cool sometimes, but they gotta be careful.
Well, I mean, we've talked about like the finishing moves of yesteryear compared to finishing moves now, where like nothing really now is a finishing move, since like somebody can just kick out of a tombstone, or like you said, kick out of a super kick, or kick out of a power bomb, or like there are no like, yeah, it might be one of your like last moves that you use in a match, but like nothing is a real finisher anymore.
One winged angel.
They gotta protect stuff. Has anybody ever kicked out of the one winged angel?
Never. I don't think ever.
Okay. That's
Okay,
the thing.
so
They gotta
one.
protect moves.
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean,
But
'cause
not, like, go ahead, Chris.
I was gonna say, freaking Trent, who had another great match, by the way. When we were at the show in Charlotte, he necessarily didn't kick out of the what's
Black Arrow?
What's his name? Thank you, the Black Arrow. He didn't necessarily kick out of that, and I don't know, has anyone ever kicked out of it?
No, I don't believe anybody's ever kicked out of that either.
That's good. Protect these finishing moves because they need to have that protection to be believable. But like, to your guys' points, like to your point, there's moves that people are kicking out of left and right. The tombstone people kicked out of. The F5, people kicked out of. The spear, people kicked out of. The Superman punch is a terrible move. They're like, these moves are like they're not protected anymore, and we're running out of moves to be protected. You got to think of a new move for them to even protect something.
Well, you can still have a move and then build it as being powerful but not impossible to kick out of, and then combo a few of those moves together to then get the win, because that's kind of what Okada did against Kota Ibushi the other day, where it's like he does like a Rainmaker to Ibushi and Ibushi kicks out, and then he did like 2 Rainmakers to him and then he kicks out, and then like they got a back and forth, and then he tombstones him and then immediately does a Rainmaker and then wins the match or something like that. Like, so you can combo these really heavy duty moves together and make it a little bit more believable, especially by, you know, lowering, I don't know. I mean, like for instance, let's talk about the move that you hate, right? The Superman punch. Is there a way that you build a running segment in any Roman Reigns match to make that move look really effective? And I think if you did a heel version of Roman Reigns and what his move was with that Superman punch was that he threw somebody into the ropes from like the front side, and the guy started bouncing backwards so he can't see anything, and then he did a Superman punch and hit him in the back of the head, which would be pretty brutal looking. I think that could make that move look very strong, and then occasionally you can use it as a finisher, or occasionally you can use it as a combo with a spear then to be a finisher. As it is, that move doesn't look very good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I said, if you did it from behind, but it would be, that's again a very heelish thing, I think, because he wants to like look at the person that he's doing it. But it's like at that point, to your point, why don't I just take a step to the left?
Yeah, and I that's it's hard for me to. But while I think it's an interesting concept for having him to knock, hit the guy in the back of the head, unfortunately, I have seen someone punch somebody in the back of the head and break their hand. So to me, that's a little bit unbelievable because the back of your head is the strongest part of your head, and I've seen people easily break their hands in the back of someone's head. So he would have to be like an elbow or a forearm or something for it to be a little more heelish and believable for me. But
Sure.
I do like the idea of it not being able to be seen where it's coming from because, as you mentioned, it drives me crazy that people see it coming and they just stand there and take it.
Yeah.
I
So
want to punch the kid in the back of the head. It hurt a little bit.
Did you break? You didn't break your hand though, right? Like
No,
you just,
I didn't break my hand.
but it hurt for a while.
I did, although, get suspended from school for 3 days.
Who was that, Chuck?
I don't know. We should be naming names.
Yeah, don't drop names, but
it was middle school era, and he was a year ahead of us.
you can type it into the chat.
Yeah, type it in the bottom. I'm curious, or tell it after the podcast is.
But you missed I missed my timing because I was waiting for him to give me a little bit of a moment, and I'd say, and why did you? I was going to say, and why did you hit Creamy Kramer in the back of the head?
He spit
Chuck
on him
and I
yelled,
actually never
"Trish
got into
Stratus."
any fights.
Oh yeah. Well, I know a way. I think if Chuck ever got in between you and your creamer, you would go off. It'd be done.
That would low blow city right. And a Ric Flair woo afterwards.
And then run to the hills because once he gets up, you're gonna die.
Yes, absolutely.
He's gonna be like Eric Rowan beating down local competition.
Heck yeah.
Speaking of, I don't think it was this Raw, or I think it was last week. As that Rowan was fighting whatever local guy that I think ran under the ring, Amy comes in and she sees that and she's like, "That's not even believable. What the hell's going on here?" She's like, "Why is this scrawny little guy fighting this monster?" So I had to explain to her the fact of they're building him up to be this massive monster of a guy.
Yeah, they're taking the Viking Raiders path, where it's like you fight local talent until you're like 80 years old, and then maybe we'll believe that you're actually strong.
And then you lose to the OC.
And then you lose to the OC. Yeah, I mean, but to be fair to WWE's point, every single time I'd see the Viking Raiders beat local talent, I'm like, they're weaklings. They're not strong. They can't beat anybody. They don't look talented. God, they're worthless. Said no one ever. WWE. It takes one match. I know I've said this before. Broken record spot. It takes one match. Eric Rowan does not need to be fighting these people to the day they die. And at the end of the day, whatever is inside the cage is the only thing that is dragging this corpse of a storyline along. That's it.
It's going to be so disappointing whenever we find out.
If it's Mae Young's hand, it's not going to be disappointing.
Imagine it's just nothing. Like the cage is empty and he's just seeing like an illusion in his mind.
That sounds, oh God, that sounds
like
exactly like what it is.
Seeing little Jimmy.
Oh no.
It's little Jimmy's in the cage.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if anybody picked up on this, but during his match, there was somebody in the crowd that had his mask.
The sheep mask. The old school sheep mask from the family. Like
Yep.
that's on the nose though, right? Like if that's in the cage, it's like, okay, yep, he's back to that now. Does that mean he's going back to the family? Does that mean he's going back to the Fiend? But that's
what
the other
family?
show.
Yeah. That there's no real connection there. Again, the only one that's crazy enough for me is that hand. If it would be the hand, like people joke about that would be so crazy that I would love it.
What if it's like a doll? What if it's a doll of a wrestler or something? Like that could be interesting, like almost like a voodoo thing where it's like, and this is a guy who's not on wrestling right now. That could be interesting if they bring him back. What if it's like and they transition Bo into the new leader of the family because the Fiend is over on SmackDown doing his thing, and Bo gets to kind of build a new character as the leader, whatever family they want to call it at that point.
Sign him up, WWE. Sign him up as a writer right now.
It's just another way to introduce somebody into the rest. I don't know if it's good or bad. It's just I know it's probably going to be better than whatever's in the cage. That's what I know. Because whatever's in the cage cannot be good enough for us to be interested for all these enhancement talent to get beat up.
Poor enhancement talent. What if it's like a small little enhancement wrestler squished inside of a cage? But this one's mine.
You cannot fit someone into that cage. It's not big enough.
Not even.
It's gonna be like a rat. It's gonna be like a rabbit. Like it's just gonna be a pet. Like it'll end up just being a little animal, like a ferret or like a rabbit or like a chinchilla. I don't know, something, or a lizard.
A chinchilla.
Just shoved into the cage. And like, this is it.
What if
He's got a pet?
What if they made it like big enough for somebody to fit through, and they like fastened it under the ring and created the illusion like a full-grown person came out of it?
Just a head. Just a head.
Yeah.
Or they leave it in the ring and it's just a head. Or they the way they're sitting it on the stairs, they could almost, because you ever see what he does on the stairs? He pulls the stairs back slightly.
Yeah.
If they could figure out a way to pull the stairs back and have somebody slide in between the stairs and just stick their head up through the cage, that'd be creepy as hell.
Hornswoggle.
He's on the independent. Yeah, he's on the independent. They'd have to re-sign him.
They might do something like that though. They could.
Hey, listen, Hornswoggle always makes an appearance somehow at the Rumble. So he's still coming out from underneath the ring because he never got tossed over.
here's a question for you guys. If they set up all these spots to have it seem like there was just a head in a cage that could talk, would you be willing to buy into that?
No.
I think I would. I don't care that it's outlandish. If I think they could make it interesting enough.
There's one head that I would be okay with, and that's Jambi. Mecca lecca high, mecca hiney ho.
Oh God.
Love it.
I'd
could
be
get on
okay
with
with
that.
it. I'd be okay with it. Like if they do it well, and this goes back to production, if they do it well and make it look believable and don't screw it up, but there's gonna be a thin line to screwing that up, right? The minute it's like, okay, I could see the guy's shoulders, it doesn't look like he's really there. It's obvious that he's sitting under a table or something like that. It'd be tough for them to do it consistently well.
I need to
What
do
about Al Snow's head?
Oh man. That would be a fun spot once, and then it would lose me. I wanted to do a quick PSA for all the people who listen to this podcast and that may on any given day be thinking about doing the Bald Monkeys Wrestling Podcast drinking game. I need to set a hard core rule for all of you guys. Do not play the story drinking game along with the production drinking game, or you will die.
One or the other.
If you do it every single time I say story, that's fine. If you do it every single time Chris says production, that's fine. If you do it at the same time, you will die. Literally.
Yeah, we were a bit of a broken record.
We're the worst.
We have our points, and we have our break points, and I think
our point breaks.
Our point breaks. There it is. Damn, you beat me to it.
Oh man! All right, Chuck. Minus Lashley, Lana. I want you to tell me what your least favorite storyline is and how you would fix it. Go.
Yeah, I hate going first on this.
And then,
crap.
I want everybody's heard me say this, so everybody think about it. It's fun to put Chuck on the spot because you know he squirms, squirm.
Oh man. Yeah. Dude, I don't even know.
Does anybody have one? Does anybody have one? They can go before you.
So hold
give you time.
hold on. So we're taking the whole wedding thing out.
You can't talk about Lana Lashley. We talked about it too much already.
Can't talk about that. Okay.
Week.
Man, damn it. Okay, I got one. Why is Riho still the champion when she was in a four-way with three people that could easily beat her? I hate that.
Can we say two? Can we say two
people?
Two people.
Well, okay, fine. Two people.
Me and Chris have to get our Britt Baker hate on.
We have to lay that out every week. It's a quota.
Like until you learn to wrestle, you are not a wrestler.
But can we finally just have Nyla Rose destroy her? Like ultimately destroy her. Please.
Yeah, but the story of the match was that Sheeta and Rose were giving each other everything that they could handle, and Riho kind of stole the win.
I know, but it is unbelievable. That's like having Hornswoggle beat Braun Strowman.
I mean, he's right there by his knees. He could probably mess his knees up pretty bad.
By the way, talking about Twitter stuff, did you see the tweet from, I think it was Janela when with Nyla Rose when Nyla put him through the table?
I'm not sure. What did it say?
I forget. It was something about like I asked Nyla if I could like go in her Uber with her, and then she put me through a table, something like that.
It was Jungle Boy.
Oh, there you go.
It was so basically they're starting to build this social media storyline where Nyla Rose is just putting random people through tables, like on social media. So yeah, Jungle Boy asked to share the Uber with Nyla Rose, and there's a picture on social media of him laying on a broken table and her sitting there playing on her phone.
Love it. Okay, so that would be the one thing I don't like is stronger wrestlers still succumbing to Riho as the champion in AEW.
They might have the fix for that already, though, because she's getting ready to fight Kim Statlander. Would you be
Yeah.
opposed to Kim Statlander winning?
No.
Man, how about that spot when Sheeta did the Falcon Arrow to Nyla Rose?
It's good stuff, man.
Picking up big Nyla Rose, man, that was good. And some of the table spots in there were actually pretty good. I'm with Chuck though. It's just I think it's time for Riho to drop the belt. I get the storybook ending for her to win the title first, but it almost looks like Baker's going to be the one still to take it from Riho. Like there's still going to be a way that Baker finds her way with that belt. Just after the promo, they even cut backstage, which was awkward and weird, comparing Riho to Brock Lesnar, which is like makes no sense.
That's kind of funny though. Actually, I think that's kind of funny because of how small she is. I think that's kind of like that's ridiculous.
Well, we'll make her a heel. Like that's the thing. Like if she was a heel, that character works. Sliding in and getting the pin after somebody else makes the move or does the big move, like that heelish way of pulling out the title every single time would make a lot more sense than this underdog story that, to Chuck's point, is unbelievable.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue with Riho is that the second that she won, she could have a program with Britt Baker, and I could even believe that she could beat Britt Baker. But when they pivoted to the next opponent, it really needed to be Yuki. We've been waiting for Yuki forever. And if she fought Yuki, it would be a really good match because they're both, small, Asian women that have wrestled each other before. They have chemistry.
That's the prerequisite. Small Asian woman. You're in.
Yeah.
By the way, is everybody really, really, really excited for Brock Lesnar on Monday?
No, not at all. So, Pitch, how are you fixing it? So, you don't want Riho to have the championship. So, how are you fixing it?
Well, I would have Statlander, take it from her.
So, the ship might right itself.
Yeah, I mean that's her next title match, right?
Yeah, it should be. I think it's this upcoming week, I believe.
This Wednesday in Memphis, yeah.
Yeah, I'd go with that. And then, I mean, you can have, I would say no matter what happens, keep having Nyla Rose just destroying people through tables because it is fun.
Okay. Chris.
So I'm going to take something that happened this week and I'm going to take advantage of it. And it's a storyline that I think we've talked about in previous podcasts. Shorty G, Chad Gable.
God, you guys are stealing all my stuff. I was like, I'm going to talk about Riho, and then I'm going to talk about Shorty G.
See what happens when you force me to go first?
Well, this is why it sucks to go last.
So he's a great wrestler. He could do some great things. So he got kicked in the face hard this week. Sheamus, bro kick, whatever. Mm-hmm. He kicked the crap out of him, and he landed hard on the back of his neck. What a better time than now to say he kicked the character right out of Shorty G. He kicked him in the face, and Shorty G is confused, doesn't know who he is anymore. And this is the moment that we go back to the great storyline that I brought up a while ago where Shorty G becomes Kurt Angle. He legitimately thinks he's Kurt Angle. He legitimately thinks that he is that person. And he comes back and just starts shave his head. And he can completely become Kurt Angle and just do that character, do all the moveset and build that character as the comical Kurt Angle. Have great matches,
Fantastic.
Have great backstage promos with people, just loses his mind. And I think it would go over incredibly well with the crowd.
Well, let's be fair here, okay? Because the last time you pitched this, you pitched it as he's the son, and now he's going to legitimately
Yes.
act like Kurt Angle. That
Yeah.
was a horrible idea. This
So good.
idea is much better.
I'm trying to get him into that character somehow, and they gave me a way to do it this week when he got his face kicked in. So it's perfect.
I love the idea of that as like an everybody's just like, I've tried telling him. He doesn't believe me.
He just all of a sudden cuts a promo and go, "I'm back. It's true. It's true." And everyone's like, "What?" And he just walks away off camera, and they just keep teasing it. So, and then all of a sudden he comes out with his head shaved, and then all of a sudden he comes out wearing medals. Like, it would just be incredible to let him just morph into that character, and he would do a great job. He does funny promos, and he's a great wrestler. It works.
That's a wild pitch. That I like that one. That one's great. All right, Creamy. I gave you a little bit of a cushion.
Much appreciated. So the thing that I had the issue with this week, and it's been something that has been bugging me for a while with different matches, but it's the Andrade Ricochet match. It's not them. It's the way that the match came up. So you have the original match. It's Andrade against whoever that guy was. And then Andrade goes for the DDT on the concrete floor. And then Ricochet comes in and says, whoa, 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 that's not going to work. Personally, I'm getting tired of all the different run-ins in the middle of a match. And then now it's a new match with Ricochet versus Andrade. Like, the match with the original guy just didn't even take place.
So how do we fix that?
So the premise that Ricochet had was, he saw that Andrade did that to Humberto Carrillo, and then he also, I think he did it at no, he didn't do it to Ray at MSG, but have Ricochet come out and call him out ahead of time, and then set up, the storyline, the back and forth. Do it that way. Go back to more of an old school where you have guys coming out, getting on the mic, calling somebody out, and then you have a match from there, instead of having a kind of like a fluffer match with Andrade against the local guy, and then Ricochet coming out and having to stop it.
That is the best term for that, I think, is fluffer. Like, that really is like what they're doing. They're bringing out an enhancement talent to get his ass kicked, and somebody feel bad for him, and Ricochet come out and make the save and have a whole new match. But who are they putting over in that? Are they putting over Andrade or Ricochet?
They're trying to put over both of them, which is challenging the way that they ran it. But I don't know. I mean, he's getting ready to have a match with Mysterio, right?
Yeah, they're gonna have a rematch with Mysterio on Monday night. Andrade and Mysterio. I don't know, man. I see the issue with it. I don't know how to fix that. I feel like it's an alternative to the, hey, we're gonna have a one-on-one match, and all of a sudden it's gonna turn into a tag match or a 6-man tag match. It's the extra match that they've been adding into these shows without putting them on the card. Like, oh, it's gonna be the OC versus the Street Profits, and then all of a sudden you're gonna have a third man, interact, and it's gonna be a 6-man tag all of a sudden later in the night. I just think they have more talent on the roster that they don't need to do stuff like that. Just have regular matches and regular storylines. That stuff's good for house shows, but I don't know that it's good for Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite. I think those need to be more concrete matches and more concrete storylines.
Speaking of concrete, and something that Mikey brought up that happened on Monday, this whole bringing up the outside padding and exposing the quote unquote concrete, dude, it's literally plywood over a ice rink. Come on, that is not concrete. Please don't call it concrete when it's not concrete.
Yeah, flubs up with announcers and such.
It's not, isn't it sometimes concrete? Because
It is for sure.
Sometimes it is, depending on what the arena is and what time of year it is. But where they were on Monday, that was plywood over an ice rink.
which still hurts. I mean,
Oh yeah, I'm not saying it doesn't hurt. I'm just saying don't call it concrete.
Hey guys, sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries.
You've been here the whole time.
Yeah, we didn't go anywhere.
Fourth wall.
Oh no! They know.
Oh man, and now it's to me, and everybody sucks because everybody picked like every time I pivoted to a storyline, people took my storylines. So here I am, and I'm looking through all these AEW storylines, and I'm fine with them, except for the one that Chuck talked about. And I'm looking through the Raw and SmackDown ones, and the two ones that could definitely be improved the most were already talked about. So if I look through here, the only storyline that kind of bothers me is The Miz versus Kofi Kingston. And what is developing out of that. And while I'm happy to see The Miz pivot back to being a heel, and the crowd likes him as a heel, I know, Chris, you love him as a heel. I don't know that I like this program at all, because what you're doing is you're denying the better storyline that's right in front of your face. And it has nothing to do with Miz. It has to do with breaking up the New Day. Why aren't we doing that? Why haven't we done that? You had the perfect opportunity to do this. What really are the New Day bringing to the table right now that you're losing out on instead of merch, right? You're losing merch for a little bit, but I would almost argue that the merch game has probably stagnated just a little bit, and it could come on so much stronger once Xavier's back and you do a big reuniting of the New Day. So who cares? You had the opportunity to split up Big E and Kofi Kingston and make one of them a very polarizing heel and one of them a very polarizing face, and run with that. And yet we're too worried about having Miz Morrison versus Kingston Big E. It's not an awful match. I don't think anybody in this chat would, complain about that match. But if I'm nitpicking and I'm trying to improve, storylines and make the product better, it's not as compelling as the New Day splitting up. And so how would I fix that? I would have Morrison and Miz beat the New Day really bad and then immediately do a heel turn.
A heel turn, Morrison on Miz, or vice versa? Miz
No,
on Morrison?
no, that's not a heel turn with them. A heel turn of the New Day,
okay.
one person against the other. Pivot back. Yeah, pivot back to that New Day heel turn that is the obvious thing to do. It makes so much sense that they should have done that by now, and they haven't.
You can set that up at the Rumble, though.
True. No, I agree.
Because Kofi always does his crazy spot. I think in a year or two recently, he used Big E to catch him and then bring him back over to the ring. If they go that route again, you could have Big E drop him, and then you see the heel turn there.
They haven't necessarily done a great job building the heel turn, though. That's the only issue with it at the moment. But they were hinting at it so hardcore with, Kofi constantly being asked, or apologize to about the whole Brock Lesnar stuff.
Yeah, they went away from that. It was a good direction, and I felt like you could get to that point with Kofi quietly getting angrier and angrier, but they kind of gone away with it. Gone away from it now since they've been actually carrying the titles.
Here's a question. Can you totally relaunch the Kofi movement if he wins the Royal Rumble and challenges Brock Lesnar?
I think the crowd would be into it if Kofi could somehow get that momentum back and take it back from Brock. That would be probably great. But then you're moving Kofi away from SmackDown, right?
Yeah, I mean that whole Raw SmackDown division thing, it's so stupid anyway.
Agreed.
Well, what show was the Usos on? Weren't they on Raw?
They were technically drafted to Raw,
So
but
what's the explanation that they're on SmackDown right now?
Well, it's an easy way to divide. I mean, words they're difficult. The reasoning, that's an easier word to say. The reasoning could be that they're just there to save their boy, and then they don't show up again, and then they're just on Raw.
Or you bring the Usos over to SmackDown and, to your point, get New Day over to Raw by making Kofi go after Brock.
Yeah. Or you have the Usos, the New Day, and the Revival all on SmackDown, and you just revamp the tag division.
Love. Yeah, I'm into that.
Which
Let's
I'm
get the
fine
tag
with that.
teams
If
back.
if they don't do that turn, then that's what they should do. And then this Miz Morrison matchup against the New Day should just be a one-off because there's more important things for the New Day to do to establish the tag titles on SmackDown being a big deal.
definitely option C.
See, I feel like it would have made more sense for the Usos to run in and save Shorty G against the Revival and let Sheamus kick Roman Reigns, like save Roman Reigns, but then kick Roman Reigns. I mean, that would have been an equal amount of heat. I think it probably would have been more heat for Sheamus if he would have kicked Roman Reigns in the face rather than Shorty G. But then I wouldn't get my storyline of Shorty G turning into Kurt Angle, so forget that.
And you wouldn't get, this continuation of Baron Corbin. I mean, that Corbin Reigns storyline has to continue, and we all know how much you like Baron Corbin.
Yeah, that's true too. But Baron Corbin will be fine. He'll find another person to be awesome and make the face.
Sure.
He is the face maker.
A face maker. Well, man, been a few weeks since we've done this. We've hit our time frame here. It's been fun, boys. It's been fun talking a little wrestling. But you know what was equally fun, and I hope to do it every year that this podcast keeps going, is taking that break at the end of the year. Man, that was crucial for me. I really didn't watch much wrestling at all, like at all. I didn't watch a single bit of wrestling after we did the one podcast until the Lana Lashley wedding, basically, and
What a weird way to get back into wrestling. Watch a terrible wedding.
Again,
promo.
I swear by that segment, I enjoyed the heck out of it. So, call me crazy. Many people have.
You're crazy.
Yeah, but I really enjoyed that segment, and I'm one of the few. But for entertainment purposes, I think it was very entertaining. I mean, yeah, that makeup stuff, like the makeup, I mean, they were weird. It was Botch City. It was Botch City, USA, but it was entertaining Botch City, USA.
My question in that is, why is Bobby Lashley wearing that much makeup?
The world may never know, Chuck. The world may never know. But now he does wear makeup, and maybe if we're lucky, we'll start seeing people in the crowd that's have signs that say Bob Lashley wears more makeup than my mother or something like that.
So some of the best tweets I saw were that Lana kissed the black off of him. It was
Oh
so funny.
my god!
Oh man!
Wow.
That's
Terrible.
great.
Wow.
And that's
Terrible.
and again, This is the thing that I love the most about wrestling that I want to emphasize is that there was a lot of heat that was pulled from that Lana Lashley thing about like, you know, LGBTQ storylines and stuff like that. And my major issue with that is that it's wrestling. It's entertainment. And when wrestling has to worry too much about who it offends and stuff like that, I get confused by that because we don't do that for everything else. I mean, you have shows all over the place that people don't really complain about at all that do stuff like that. So why pick on wrestling in particular? It's entertainment value stuff. And if you don't like it and it doesn't entertain you, then you boo. And if you do like it, then you clap. And if you are actually, I guess, really, if you don't like it, don't say anything. Because the quiet is what kills segments. If every single time from the beginning of these segments with Bobby Lashley and Lana had everybody just shut up that didn't like it, then guess what? It would have been off television already. Everybody was quiet. So, you know.
Yep. There's only one person I feel like that can really gripe about that is Sonya Deville.
True.
I feel like they were never given the opportunity for that same exact angle for Sonya Deville and Mandy Rose to have that kind of LGBT kind of angle. And I think they're the only ones that be like, wait a second, you cut off our angle for this, and now it's going to be Lana and Liv. You know, that's a backstage thing. That's a storyline issue on that side. And I agree.
And I don't even know, because that angle felt like it was trying to be more realistic, whereas this one is more of a slapstick comedy thing. And I think that you can do both.
I think they should do both. I think they should rehash that other one, especially with the Otis situation with Mandy. But a topic for another podcast.
True.
I'm sure we'll get into, because there's another week of wrestling coming. So another week of development and bad production. Drink.
And hopefully not too bad, and lots of good story. Drink. Okay, thank you everybody for listening this week. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. We're happy to be back. It's going to be a fun year of wrestling, 2020 year of the bald monkeys. And it's been fun to have you, Creamy Kramer. Hope to see you around more and more now that you've joined us.
Thank you. Yeah, I plan on being on a little bit more, you know, given last year that was 1 and I've already met that mark. So, you know, anything more is better.
There you go. Christopher, it's always a pleasure. Captain Chuckles, always a pleasure.
Always.
If you liked what you heard today, please make sure you like, subscribe, share with people that love wrestling. We strive for this to be a podcast for people who just love wrestling. You know, we're going to be critical of every product no matter what, or blindly defend every product if that ends up at what it is.
To the end.
But we thank you for listening this week, and we hope you guys are listening next week. I'm looking forward to next week. I have a feeling that I'm going to have a lot to gripe about with Brock Lesnar. Because, you know, guess what? It's a new year, and his contract finally says he has to show up a couple times. So, thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next week.